Jack Miller sat on the edge of his seat inside the shuttle. It was his first time leaving Earth. His hands were shaking, but he tried to hide it. He was just a trainee, not even a real diplomat yet. Still, somehow, he had been chosen to join the Earth delegation visiting Velmora, a faraway alien planet known for its strange customs. Everyone else on the shuttle looked calm. They wore clean suits, had practiced smiles, and carried small translators on their collars. Jack's translator kept making strange sounds. He tapped it and hoped it would start working again. The shuttle finally landed. A strong light filled the windows as the doors opened. Jack stepped out and stared at the sight in front of him. The palace of Velmora was huge and covered in gold. Tall towers rose into the sky. Long banners with glowing symbols waved in the air. Strange music played in the background. A group of tall armored guards waited at the bottom of the ramp. They wore shining gold suits and did not speak. One of them nodded and waved for the humans to follow. Jack tried to keep up with the group, but the crowd was big. Bright lights flashed. Alien cameras floated in the air. Jack was pushed from behind and lost sight of the others. Called out, but no one answered. He turned a corner and found himself in a quiet hall. It was filled with flowers that glowed in the dark. The floor sparkled like glass. Before he could go back, a group of aliens wearing robes saw him. They looked at him with joy and bowed. Jack tried to speak, but they pulled him forward gently. A robe was placed around his shoulders. He looked around in shock. He tried to say he was lost, but they only smiled more. They brought him to a big room filled with hundreds of aliens. Lights above changed colors slowly. At the center stood a beautiful young woman. She wore a golden dress that looked like armor and had bright silver hair. A crown with red and blue stones sat on her head. Her face was calm but strong. Jack realized too late that he had walked into a ceremony. The aliens stood around him, clapping and smiling. The woman looked at him and gave a small nod. Jack froze. His translator buzzed and made a small beep. It said one word before shutting down. That word was yes. The crowd cheered. Strange smoke filled the room. A golden ring was placed in Jack's hand and he was told to give it to the princess. Confused and scared, he did what they asked. She accepted the ring and placed one on his finger. The room filled with light and music grew louder. Jack felt dizzy. He wanted to ask what had just happened, but everyone around him was celebrating. He looked at the princess again. She stepped forward and said something he could not understand, and she smiled just a little. Two guards came and stood beside him. Tall alien with a long white robe spoke fast and loud. Everyone clapped again. Jack was led out of the room with the princess by his side. He kept looking around for help, but there was no one from Earth in sight. He finally saw someone he knew. The human ambassador rushed forward, eyes wide. He looked at Jack, then at the princess, then back at Jack. "What did you do?" the ambassador asked, his voice low. Jack shook his head. "I got lost. I just followed a group. I thought it was part of the tour." The ambassador rubbed his face. "Jack, you just married the princess of Velmora." Jack's mouth dropped open. He turned to look at the princess, who stood calmly beside him. Her eyes met his. She didn't look angry. She didn't look happy either. She looked ready for whatever came next. Jack felt his legs go weak. He had come to watch a wedding. He was the groom. Jack stood in the golden hallway, still trying to understand what had happened. Guards stood on each side of him. Their faces were covered with masks, and they didn't speak. The princess walked beside him. Her steps were quiet, smooth, and proud. She did not look at him. The ambassador followed behind, whispering quickly into a small device. Jack wished he could disappear. He had not meant to do anything wrong. He only got lost. But now, everything had changed. They reached a wide chamber with long glass walls. Strange creatures floated outside the glass. Jack tried not to stare at them. Inside the room, many aliens in robes sat in a circle. At the center was a chair made of silver. The princess sat down. Jack stood beside her, not sure what to do. The ambassador stepped forward and bowed. One of the Velmoran leaders began to speak. Jack could not understand a word. His translator was still broken. The ambassador listened, then looked at Jack. "They say the marriage is done. This was witnessed by the High Council. It cannot be undone." Jack shook his head. "But it was a mistake. I didn't know. I didn't even say anything." "You did," the ambassador said. "Your translator said yes. That was enough." Jack looked at the princess. She was staring forward, not looking at him. Her hands rested on her knees. Her face was calm. "What do I do now?" Jack asked. "You have to follow Velmoran law," the ambassador said. "The council's already talking about how to move forward. You are not just her husband now. You are part of their royal family." Jack's mouth went dry. He felt lightheaded. He had no training for this. He was just a trainee from Earth who had come to learn. Now he was married to a royal alien woman in a golden city far from home. After the meeting, Jack was taken to a large room with tall windows. It was quiet and filled with soft lights. There was food on the table, but he wasn't hungry. Later that evening, the princess entered the room. She wore a long robe and no crown. She stood still and looked at him. "You speak now?" she asked slowly. Her voice was soft but strong. She was speaking in English, but each word came with effort. Jack nodded. "Yes, I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry." The princess looked at him for a long time. "I know." "Can this be fixed?" he asked. "Can we undo it?" She shook her head. "No. Once the bond is made, it is sealed by law." Jack sat down and looked at the floor. "I don't belong here. I'm just a guest." The princess walked to the window and looked out. Velmora believes in fate. They think things happen for a reason. They believe the stars choose. Jack looked up. "Do you believe that?" She turned to him. "I don't know, but I follow my duty." "Now that duty includes you." He stood up. "I will try to respect your world, but I don't know how to be a prince." "Then learn," she said. For the next few days, Jack stayed inside the royal palace. Guards watched over him. Teachers came to show him Velmoran words and customs. He tried to learn, even when he felt lost. He saw the princess sometimes, walking in the gardens or speaking to the council. She was always calm, always strong. Jack began to admire her. One day while he was practicing the language, she joined him. "You learn fast," she said. "Only because I must," Jack replied. "I don't want to be useless." She smiled for the first time. "That is good." They sat together, and she began to teach him how to speak one of the royal greetings. They laughed when he got the sounds wrong. For a moment, things felt lighter. But outside the palace, not everyone was happy. Some aliens whispered that the marriage was wrong. Some feared the humans. Some said the stars had made a mistake. And somewhere in the deep parts of the city, a group of shadows began to move. They did not want peace. They wanted change. And they would not let the new prince live quietly for long. The days passed slowly inside the golden walls of the palace. Jack began to understand a little more about Velmora each day. He learned the customs, the greetings, and how to eat the strange food. He even started to enjoy some of it. The Princess Alira became less distant. She would join Jack in the gardens or in the halls where he trained. They spoke in short sentences, teaching each other new words. Jack still felt like a stranger, but the silence between them was no longer cold. The royal teachers were strict. They told Jack how to walk, how to bow, and how to answer questions from the council. He often made mistakes, but Alira would correct him kindly. Her patience surprised him. One night, Jack sat near the window in his room, looking at the stars. He missed Earth. He missed the sky he had known all his life, but something inside him had changed. Velmora was becoming less strange. It was starting to feel real. The next day, Alira took him to a secret part of the palace. It was a quiet room filled with old books and glowing stones. "This is the memory room," she said. "Only the royal family may enter." Jack looked around. "Why did you bring me here? Because now you are part of that family, whether you want it or not." He nodded. "I will try to be worthy." She walked to one of the glowing stones and touched it. A light appeared in the air, showing images of past rulers. Alira spoke their names with pride. Jack listened closely. For the first time, he saw more than a princess. He saw a leader, someone strong and wise. But far from the palace, trouble was growing. A group of angry Velmorans had gathered in the shadows. They were not happy about the marriage. They believed a human had no right to be part of the royal line. They thought Earth would use the marriage to take power. One of the leaders of the group, a tall figure named Rosin, spoke in a quiet voice. "We must act. The longer he stays, the more control he gains. The others nodded. They had no love for humans. They wanted Velmora to stay pure, and they had a plan. Back at the palace, Jack and Alira continued to grow closer. She showed him the hidden parts of her world, the parts only royals knew. He shared stories of Earth, simple ones, about parks, food, and music. She listened with interest. One afternoon, while walking in the royal garden, Jack noticed something strange. A guard who usually stood by the gate was missing. Lyra also seemed uneasy. "Let's go back," she said. They turned to leave, but before they could reach the gate, a loud sound shook the garden. Smoke rose from the far side. Guards ran in all directions. Jack grabbed Alira's hand. "This way," he said, pulling her toward a stone wall. They crouched behind it. More sounds came. Shouts, weapons, flashing lights. Alira looked at him. "They are here for you." "Then we run," Jack said. But before they could move, 3 figures in black robes jumped over the wall. One of them held a sharp weapon. Jack stood in front of Alira. "Go," he whispered. She did not move. Instead, she reached into her robe and pulled out a small device. It flashed with blue light and hit one of the attackers. The figure fell. Jack grabbed a stone and threw it at another one. The second attacker fell back, but the third rushed forward. Lyra kicked him hard, sending him to the ground. Guards finally arrived and captured the attackers. Jack and Alira were taken inside. The council met that same evening. Some wanted Jack sent back to Earth. Others said he had proven his loyalty. Lyra spoke last. "He stood with me," she said. "He fought for me. He's no longer a stranger." The room was quiet. Then one of the council members stood up. "Let him stay. He has earned his place." Jack sat beside Alira, breathing hard. He looked at her and saw the same look in her eyes that he felt in his chest. They were no longer just 2 people from different worlds. They were partners. And now, their bond was stronger than ever. Life inside the palace was no longer quiet. After the attack in the garden, the guards became more alert. They stood at every gate and corner. Lyra and Jack were not allowed to walk alone anymore. But even with the danger, something had changed between them. They trusted each other now. Alira met with the council every day. Jack watched and listened. He began to understand how Velmora worked. He learned how leaders made decisions and how peace was kept among the different groups in the city. He started to speak more during meetings. His words were still simple, but his ideas were clear. Some of the council members began to like him. Others still watched him with doubt. But Jack did not give up. He wanted to prove he could help. One day, Alira took him to a special room filled with machines and lights. "This is our communication lab," she said. "We speak to other worlds from here." Jack looked at the controls. "Why is it so quiet? We use it only when needed." "Messages between stars take time." Jack had an idea. He asked to connect one of Earth's small systems to the Velmoran network. It was not easy. But after some work, they created a new program. It helped the translators work better. Now the humans and Velmorans could speak more clearly. The council was impressed. Even the elders who did not like Jack began to see his value. Alira smiled when they praised him. But far outside the palace, the rebel group was still moving. Razin had not given up. He was angry that the attack failed. He blamed Jack for changing Velmora, blamed Alira for trusting a human. Razin gathered more followers. He planned something bigger. This time, it would not be just an attack. It would be a message to all of Velmora. Jack and Alira spent more time together. They talked about their pasts, their dreams, and the future of their people. Jack told her about his life on Earth, his family, and how he never wanted power. Alira spoke about her duty, her training, and how she had never been allowed to choose her own path. At night, they stood on a high balcony looking at the stars. "Do you still wish to leave?" she asked. Jack looked at her. "I did, and now I feel I have a reason to stay." She nodded slowly. "Then we must stand together. The future will not be easy." The next morning, a large crowd gathered outside the palace. The council had called a public event to show peace between Earth and Velmora. Jack and Alira were asked to speak. Alira stood tall and proud. She welcomed the people. She spoke of hope, unity, and strength. Then Jack stepped forward. His voice was calm. "I did not plan to be here. I did not plan to be your prince. But I stand with Alira, I stand with Velmora. I will not run. I will not hide. The crowd listened. Some clapped. Some stayed silent. But most stayed to hear more. Just as the event ended, a sound like thunder shook the ground. A bright light flashed in the sky. A part of the wall exploded. Panic spread. Guards shouted. Jack pulled Alira behind a pillar. Smoke filled the air. Rosin and his rebels had returned. This time they had more weapons and more people. They rushed into the square, shouting. Jack grabbed a guard's shield and stood in front of Alira. The guards fought back hard. Alira used her training and joined the defense. Jack moved with her, side by side. They fought together, like they had trained. Jack saved one of the council members from harm. Alira stopped a rebel from reaching the palace gates. Soon the royal forces pushed back the rebels. Rosin tried to escape but was caught. The battle ended with the people cheering for Alira and Jack. That night, the city lights stayed on. People danced in the streets. The council met again and declared the marriage not just a royal event, but a sign of peace and strength. Alira looked at Jack and said, "They believe in us now." Jack smiled. "Then let's not let them down." Their bond, once a mistake, had become a new hope for two worlds. Jack walked through the palace halls with new purpose. The walls no longer felt strange. The lights, the guards, and the sounds of Velmora had become part of his life. The people now greeted him with smiles. Children waved at him. Even the council members spoke to him with respect. Alira stood beside him in every meeting. She had always been strong, but now she looked proud. The attack by the rebels had brought them closer. They were no longer just bound by law. They had chosen to stand together. The council held a special session. Leaders from nearby planets had arrived. Earth sent more diplomats, this time with full support. The marriage between Jack and Alira had changed everything. It had started a path toward unity. Jack was asked to speak before the council and the guests. He stood straight, took a deep breath, and spoke from his heart. "I came here by accident. I did not plan any of this. But I have learned, I have fought, and I have stayed. Now I believe this union was not a mistake. It was a beginning." The room stayed silent for a moment. Then one of the elder council members stood. "You came as a guest. You became one of us. Now you lead beside our princess." Alira stepped forward. "Velmora does not fear change. Velmora welcomes it." That day, the council approved the start of a new plan. A shared space station would be built with Earth and Velmoran teams. It would be a place of learning, science, and peace. Jack and Alira were chosen to lead it. The station would orbit near both worlds. It would be the first of its kind. Not just a tool for power, but a bridge between different lives. Days passed quickly. Workers from both planets joined hands. Builders shaped the station. Scientists tested new tools. Jack met with Earth's engineers. Alira guided Velmora's scholars. Together, they made each part of the project move forward. One evening, Jack sat with Alira on the balcony. The station's lights could be seen in the sky now. "Do you ever miss your world?" she asked. Jack looked at the stars. "Yes, but I've made a home here. I didn't expect it, but I'm thankful." She nodded. "You're part of both worlds now." Jack smiled, "And so are you." When the station was ready, a great ceremony was held. People from many worlds came to see it. Flags from Earth and Velmora were raised side by side. A new symbol, a circle made of stars and light, was shown. It was the mark of unity. Jack and Alira gave the first tour of the station. They showed the halls, the labs, the rooms made for all kinds of beings. The station had no throne, no place for one ruler. It was built for all. Back on Velmora, people watched the event through large screens. On Earth, people cheered as the images appeared in the sky. The success of the station brought more change. Trade grew. Students began to travel. Ideas moved faster than ever. Peace grew stronger. Fear grew smaller. One day, Jack returned to the garden where the attack had first happened. He stood there alone, thinking. Alira found him there. She stood beside him without speaking for a moment. "This is where it all turned," he said. "The day everything changed." "Yes," she said. "But you stayed. You fought." Jack looked at her. "So did you. We didn't choose this. But we made something out of it. Not all stories begin with a plan, she said. Some begin with a mistake. And end with something better, Jack said. They walked back to the palace together. Behind them, the sky showed the bright path of the space station. It was not just a sign of peace. It was a symbol of what could happen when two worlds believed in something bigger than fear. And all of it had started with a wedding no one expected.